When my wife Emily first mentioned wanting to become a surrogate, I thought she was joking. We were sitting at the kitchen table, a regular Tuesday night, the soft hum of the refrigerator filling the silence between us. She looked at me with those determined green eyes, the kind that always meant she'd already made up her mind. "Mark," she said, twirling her spoon in her coffee, "Mr. Caldwell's wife can't have children. They've been looking for a surrogate for months, and I've been thinking, maybe I could help." At first I laughed. "You? Carry your boss's baby? You're serious?" She didn't smile back. "Why not? It's a noble thing to do. And besides," she paused, lowering her voice, "they're offering a significant amount of money, more than we make in a year." That's when I realized this wasn't just about helping someone. It was about the money, the kind of money that could erase our debt, pay off the mortgage, maybe even give us the life we dreamed of. But I couldn't shake off the unease. Something about the idea of my wife carrying another man's child, especially her boss's, didn't sit right with me. Before I go deeper into what happened, let me just say, from where are you watching? I'd love to know how far my stories travel, because this one still feels unreal to me. Back then, Emily and I had been married for 7 years. Things were good, not perfect, but stable. We both worked hard. She as an executive assistant to Richard Caldwell, a real estate mogul who could buy and sell entire city blocks without blinking. I worked in IT, nothing glamorous but steady. We had plans, start a family, maybe move out of our small 2-bedroom apartment. But life had its way of stalling dreams. Bills piled up, medical expenses from Emily's mother's surgery drained our savings. Every time we thought we were catching up, something else knocked us down. So when she said she wanted to do it, I could see how much it meant to her. But still, I said no. "Em, this isn't right. He's your boss. This isn't just a business deal. This is a baby we're talking about." She frowned. "It's not our baby, Mark. It would be theirs. I'd just be carrying it." "Yeah, but you'd be carrying his child, Emily. You think that's not going to change something between you two? Between us?" She looked at me exasperated. "You don't understand. This could solve everything. We're drowning, Mark. This is our way out." I stood up, running a hand through my hair. There has to be another way. But deep down, I knew she'd already decided. Over the next few days, the tension in the house grew thick. She barely spoke to me except to mention doctor appointments or paperwork. I tried reasoning with her again, even offered to pick up another job, but she kept throwing the same line back at me. "It's my body, my choice." Those words cut through me like glass. Not because she said them, but because I realized that no matter how much I loved her, no matter how much we'd been through, I had no say in something that would define the rest of our lives. A week later, she came home with a bright smile, like she'd just won the lottery. "I did it," she said. "Did what?" I asked. "I signed the contract." The world felt like it stopped for a second. "You what?" She placed the papers on the table, her hands trembling, not from fear but excitement. "They've already started the medical process. I'm officially the surrogate for Richard and Claire Caldwell." I stared at her in disbelief. "Emily, how could you do this without even—" "I told you I was doing it, Mark. You didn't listen. I turned away, the walls closing in. I wanted to scream, to break something, but all I felt was numb." I went to our bedroom, shut the door, and sat in silence. For the next few weeks, our marriage turned into an arrangement of convenience. She went to appointments, and I went to work. We stopped eating dinner together. We stopped touching, stopped laughing, stopped feeling like a team. Then one evening, she came home glowing, literally glowing. "It worked," she said softly. "I'm pregnant." I just nodded. She waited for me to say something, anything, but I couldn't, because all I could picture was Richard Caldwell, that smug millionaire who looked at my wife every day from across his desk. It wasn't jealousy, it was betrayal, wrapped in paperwork and money. The next months were a blur. She quit her job halfway through the pregnancy because the doctor recommended rest. The Caldwells paid for everything: premium medical care, dietary supplements, even prenatal massages. Our apartment filled with expensive food boxes and branded packages that I knew came from them. I stopped talking to her completely. She'd sit in the living room, rubbing her belly, humming to herself, while I'd stay in the other room pretending to sleep. Sometimes late at night, I'd hear her cry, and I wanted to comfort her, but I couldn't bring myself to, because in my mind, that baby wasn't part of us. It was part of them. Then came the 7th month, when everything changed. Emily had started getting anxious. The Caldwells were more involved than ever. Richard attended every doctor's appointment, his wife only half the time. He'd bring flowers, sometimes put a hand on Emily's shoulder a bit too long. She brushed it off as kindness. I saw it for what it was: control. One night she told me Richard had insisted on moving her into a private maternity suite for the final months for safety. I laughed bitterly. Safety? Or so he can keep you close. Mark, please, she sighed. They're paying me to carry their child. I can't just refuse everything they offer. You don't see it, do you? You're not their surrogate anymore. You're their property. She slammed the counter. Enough. You think I don't feel conflicted? You think I don't know how hard this is? But I'm doing this for us, for our future. I shook my head. No, Emily. You're doing this for you. She glared at me through tears, then grabbed her bag and left. That was the last night she slept at home. Weeks turned into months. I'd get updates through the clinic or short texts. Doctor says baby's healthy. Delivery might be early. They're increasing my payment. I tried not to care, tried to focus on work, but every time my phone buzzed, part of me hoped it was her saying, I made a mistake. I'm coming home. That message never came. Instead, one Friday morning, I got a call from the hospital. Emily had gone into labor early. My heart raced. I didn't know what to feel. Fear, anger, relief. When I reached the hospital, I saw Richard Caldwell pacing outside the delivery room, talking to the doctor like he owned the place. His wife wasn't there. Mark, he said smoothly, noticing me. Didn't think you'd come. She's still my wife, I replied coldly. He smirked. For now. Before I could respond, the nurse called him in. I stood there, watching through the glass as Emily delivered a child that wasn't mine. A few hours later, I went inside. She was lying on the bed, pale, exhausted. When she saw me, she whispered, It's a boy. I nodded. Congratulations. Your boss must be thrilled, tears welled in her eyes. Mark, please don't. I warned you, Emily. I told you not to do this. She turned her head away. You don't understand. I had to. I understand perfectly, I cut her off. You made your choice, and now I'm making mine. I walked out that night, and that's where I thought our story ended. But I was wrong, because what came after the baby's birth made everything before it looked simple. After that night at the hospital, I didn't go back. I packed a small bag, grabbed a few essentials, and left the apartment we once called home. I didn't even leave a note. I figured she'd understand what my silence meant better than any words could explain. The next morning, I checked into a small motel on the edge of town. Cheap, quiet, forgettable. The kind of place where no one asked questions. I turned off my phone, sat on the edge of the bed, and stared at the wall. I didn't feel angry anymore, just empty. For years, I had been the man who fixed things. The light bulbs, the Wi-Fi, the bills, the bad moods. But this time, I couldn't fix it. A week passed before I finally turned my phone back on. Dozens of missed calls. Emily's mother, her sister, even one from Richard Caldwell's office. I didn't answer any of them. Then came the text from Emily. Greater than asterisk, please, we need to talk. It's important. I ignored it. A few days later, she showed up at my motel. I opened the door to find her standing there. Thinner, paler, her eyes sunken from sleepless nights. She wasn't glowing anymore. Mark, please, she said quietly. Can I come in? I stepped aside wordlessly. She sat on the bed, twisting her hands together. I don't even know where to start. How about the truth? I said, leaning against the wall. Tears filled her eyes. Richard and Claire, they changed the deal. I frowned. What do you mean? They're refusing to take the baby. Claire left him a few weeks before I gave birth. She filed for divorce. And now Richard says he can't raise a child alone? I blinked, stunned. You mean to tell me they don't want the baby? She nodded, sobbing. He says there's nothing binding him now that the marriage is over. He already wired part of the money, but not all. He told me to handle it, that I could keep it or give it up for adoption. My blood ran cold. So now you're stuck with a baby that isn't even yours? Her voice cracked. I didn't know this would happen. I swear I didn't. Please, Mark, I need your help. I can't do this alone. I stared at her, feeling every ounce of pity trying to claw its way back into my chest. But I crushed it. I warned you, I said quietly. From the very beginning, I told you not to do this. I know, she whispered, but I thought I was helping us. I thought I was making things better. I shook my head. You were thinking about yourself, Emily. About the money. About proving something. And now you want me to fix the mess? She reached for my hand, but I stepped back. Please, she said again. I'm begging you. He won't even sign the final medical papers. I can't get the hospital to release certain documents. They're saying legally I'm the child's mother, and you're still my husband. That last word hit like a hammer. What? She nodded miserably. They listed you as the legal father. Because we're married, I froze. You've got to be kidding me. I'm not. I tried to explain everything to the lawyers, but until the court sorts it out, they consider you the responsible parent. I'm sorry, Mark. I didn't know it would come to this. I laughed bitterly. You never know, do you? You just act, and somehow I'm the one left cleaning up the wreckage. She started crying harder. Please don't say that. I need you. I looked her dead in the eye. No, Emily. You need a man who can live with your choices. That's not me anymore. I walked to the door, opened it, and waited. She didn't move. Finally, she stood up, clutching her purse. What am I supposed to do? You'll figure it out, I said coldly. You always do. She left without another word. For days after that, I tried to pretend it wasn't happening. I went to work, kept to myself, avoided the gossip that started to spread about Mark's wife and her boss. People whispered. I didn't care. Then one morning, I woke up to a knock on the motel door. I opened it, and there stood Emily's mother. Mark, she said, her voice trembling. Please come home. Emily needs you. The baby's sick. I clenched my jaw. It's not my baby. Her eyes filled with tears. She hasn't slept in days. She's scared, she's broke, and she's falling apart. You're her husband. Please, I turned away, my chest tight. She made her choice, Mrs. Carter. And I made mine that night. I sat in the dark, staring at the ceiling. 1,000 thoughts ran through my mind, each one louder than the last. The anger, the guilt, the memory of the woman I once loved, all fighting for space in my head. But when I thought about the baby, innocent, unwanted, pulled into chaos before even taking its first breath, I felt something twist inside me. Still, I knew what I had to do. A few days later, I met with a lawyer. We filed for divorce immediately. The moment the paperwork was stamped, I felt lighter. Not happy, just free. But freedom has a way of being temporary, because the very next week, I got a call from Child Services. Mr. Lawson, we need to confirm some details regarding the infant connected to your spouse, Emily Lawson. My stomach dropped. What kind of details? The child was brought in for temporary care after being left unattended in an apartment. Your name is on the birth certificate. We need to discuss your legal obligations. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I rushed to the hospital where they said the baby was being held. When I walked in, I saw Emily sitting there, hair disheveled, face hollow, rocking back and forth. She looked up at me, her voice breaking. I didn't mean to leave him, Mark. I broke down. I couldn't handle it. I looked at the baby, tiny, fragile, sleeping peacefully in the nurse's arms. Something inside me softened for a second. But then I reminded myself who put us here. I can't save you this time, I said quietly. She grabbed my sleeve. Please, they're saying you have to take him, that you're the legal father until it's sorted out. Please, just for now, I pulled my arm free. No, Emily, I'm done. Not my baby, not my problem. Her sobs echoed in the sterile hospital room as I turned and walked away. But as I stepped outside, the flash of cameras caught my attention. reporters. Someone had leaked the story. Mr. Lawson, is it true your wife was the surrogate for her boss's child? Did the deal go wrong? Are you refusing to take responsibility? I pushed past them, my pulse hammering. My private life had turned into a circus. By the next morning, it was everywhere. News headlines, gossip blogs, social media. Employees' surrogacy scandal rocks Caldwell Enterprises. My company suspended me until things settled. Emily's name was dragged through the mud. The Caldwell's lawyers issued statements, denying everything. Her mother called again, crying, Mark, please, whatever's left between you two, can't you at least talk? She's losing everything. I hung up, because the truth was I had nothing left to give. That night, I went to the park near our old apartment, sat on a bench, and stared at the empty swings. I thought about the man I used to be, the one who believed in loyalty, in partnership, in standing by your spouse no matter what. But that man was gone, replaced by someone who finally understood a painful truth. Love without respect is just slow destruction. Still, even as I tried to move on, I couldn't escape the shadow of what had happened. Everywhere I went, people looked, whispered, judged. And then came the final blow, a letter from her lawyer. Emily Carter versus Mark Lawson. Petition for spousal support. I laughed when I read it, a hollow, disbelieving laugh. After everything she'd done, after breaking my trust, dragging my name through the mud, and turning my life upside down, she was now demanding money. I folded the letter neatly, slid it into an envelope, and wrote 4 words on the back before mailing it back to her lawyer. Not my baby, Emily. And just when I thought the storm had finally passed, another knock came to my door. This time, it wasn't Emily. It was her mother, and she wasn't crying anymore. Mark, she said quietly, her face pale. Something's happened. When Emily's mother stood in that doorway, I knew from the look on her face that whatever she was about to say would change everything again. Mark, she whispered, clutching her purse tightly. Emily's in the hospital. She collapsed this morning. They said it was exhaustion and stress, but it's worse than that. I froze. For all the resentment I carried, hearing those words still punched the air out of my chest. What do you mean worse? She's not doing well. Please just come. She keeps asking for you. Every instinct told me not to go, to stay where I was, to finally let her face the consequences of her own choices. But part of me, whatever part of my heart still remembered who she used to be, couldn't ignore that plea. So I went. When I walked into that hospital room, it felt like stepping into the ghost of our marriage. The smell of antiseptic, the soft beeping of the machines, the half-drawn blinds casting faint stripes of light across her pale face. Emily looked fragile, almost unrecognizable. Her hair was tied back loosely, her skin pale and translucent. When she opened her eyes and saw me, she started to cry quietly. Mark, she whispered. I didn't say anything. I just stood there, hands in my pockets, staring at the woman who had turned my world inside out. I didn't know you'd come, she said weakly. I wasn't planning to, I admitted. She gave a faint smile. Still honest. Always were. There was a silence between us, thick, heavy, filled with every word we'd left unsaid. Finally, she spoke again. I ruined everything, didn't I? I exhaled slowly. You made some choices. And you have to live with them, her eyes filled with tears. I wanted to help. I thought if I could fix our problems, make enough money, maybe we'd finally stop fighting. I didn't think it would cost me you. I looked away. It wasn't just about the money, Emily. You stopped listening. You stopped trusting me. I know, she whispered, and now I have nothing left. The Caldwells want nothing to do with me. The agency blacklisted me. My reputation's ruined. And the baby, her voice cracked. What about the baby? I asked carefully. She hesitated. He's still in foster care. They said if no one comes forward soon, they'll start the adoption process. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The quiet hum of the monitors was the only sound in the room. Then she looked at me, tears streaming down her cheeks. Mark, please. Don't let him grow up without anyone. He didn't ask for any of this. He's innocent. Her words hit deeper than I wanted them to, because deep down, I knew she was right. That baby didn't choose this chaos. He didn't choose her mistakes, or Richard Caldwell's cowardice, or the system that turned a life into a contract. But I wasn't ready to forgive her. Not yet. I stood there watching her cry and said quietly, "You'll get through this, Emily. Just focus on getting better." And I turned to leave. She called after me, her voice barely a whisper. "I'm sorry, Mark." For everything, I paused at the doorway, but I didn't look back. Goodbye, Emily. That was the last time I saw her alive. 2 weeks later, her mother called again. Emily had passed away from cardiac failure brought on by exhaustion and untreated postpartum complications. I sat in silence for hours after the call, numb. Even after everything she'd done, hearing that she was gone didn't feel real. It felt unfinished. At her funeral, there weren't many people. Her mother, her sister, a few old coworkers. No one from the Caldwells showed up. I stood at the back, watching as they lowered the casket into the ground, and thought about how love could turn into tragedy so quietly. After the service, her mother came up to me. "She wanted me to give you this," she said, handing me a sealed envelope. I took it, hesitant. "What is it?" "She wrote it a few days before she died. Said you'd understand when the time was right." I didn't open it there. I waited until I got home, if you could call my small motel room home, and sat down on the bed. The envelope was worn at the edges, the handwriting faint but familiar. I unfolded the letter and began to read. "Mark, if you're reading this, it means I couldn't fix what I broke. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I want you to know I never stopped loving you. Everything I did I thought was for us, but I see now it was for me. I was trying to prove I could control something when everything else felt out of reach. If you ever find it in your heart, please make sure the baby ends up somewhere safe. Don't do it for me. Do it because you're not like the rest of us. You always had a good heart, Mark. Don't let mine ruin yours. Goodbye, Emily." I sat there, reading it over and over until the paper felt damp in my hands. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I drove to the foster center where the baby was staying. The social worker looked surprised when I walked in. "Mr. Lawson? We didn't expect to see you again." I nodded. "I'm not here for legal reasons. I just want to see him." She smiled gently. "Of course." "He's in the nursery." When I stepped inside, I saw him. Tiny, peaceful, wrapped in a blue blanket, sleeping in his crib. For a long time, I just stood there staring. He had Emily's nose, the same faint dimple in his chin. Something inside me cracked open. I reached into my pocket and pulled out her letter, folded neatly. I whispered under my breath, "You win, Emily. I'll make sure he's safe." That's how it started, not as forgiveness, but as responsibility. Over the next few months, I worked with the agency to make sure the baby was placed in a good home. I wasn't ready to raise him myself. I could barely take care of my own life, but I couldn't let him vanish into the system either. Eventually, I found a family, a couple who had struggled for years to have children. They were kind, patient, and ready to give him the life he deserved. When I handed the baby over to them for the last time, I whispered, "Take care of him. He's been through enough before he even began." They promised they would, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt peace. Months passed. I moved to a new city, started a new job, got an apartment that didn't feel haunted by memories. Every now and then, I'd get a letter from the adoption agency, updates, pictures, milestones. I'd look at them quietly, smile, then put them away. The world moved on. So did I. But sometimes late at night, I'd find myself replaying her words. "It's my body, my choice." And I'd think about how choices define us, not just the ones we make for ourselves, but the ones we make when everything falls apart. I didn't hate Emily anymore. I didn't love her either. What I felt was something in between, understanding. Because in the end, we were both just people trying to survive life's mess in the only ways we knew how. Now, when people ask about my past, I tell them this: I once loved a woman who carried another man's child. She made her choice, and I made mine. But life, it has a way of humbling you. Sometimes I still drive by the park near our old apartment. I sit on that same bench and watch families walk by, and for a brief moment, I think about what could have been before everything fell apart. Then I smile faintly, stand up, and whisper to myself the words that became my truth. Not my baby, not my problem. And with that, I walk away, finally at peace with the story that once tore my life apart.